morning, Donna Mae DiPolo, the Resource Training and Counseling Center. As you will hear from George Rivera, Assistant Director in our clinic, about the season affect disorder and what we can do to help our clients, family and friends with depression during the holidays. Let me just give you a quick update. Our detox, the construction is starting Monday. It appears that hopefully we're going to open April 1st and May 1st. We are very excited about that. And I feel moving forward we'll be able to give more services to the community. So sit back, enjoy, and hopefully you could learn a little bit from George and have a great holiday season and Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Buckley, Director of Operations for the Resource Training and Counseling Center in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm sitting here today with George Rivera, who's our Assistant Program Director in the Resource Counseling Center's outpatient clinic. We're here today to discuss a little bit about the holiday season, which is coming, and the effect that it has on the clients coming into our program, as well as people who are active and maybe thinking about going into treatment. So first I want to say hello to
How you
George.
doing, Mike?
Good, how are you? Thank you
Fine,
for coming on today.
Sure, absolutely.
So you've been in this field for about how long?
Ooh, about 18, 19 years now.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Long time.
What made you get into this field? What was your interest in working with this particular group of people in need?
Well, to be quite honest, I have a degree in hospitality management, and this is almost like hospitality management. You have to have the right attitude, people skills necessary to convey a message. And at the time, I couldn't find work, in the hospitality field. And a good friend of mine said this was something I would excel in, and right he was. It's a job that is close to my heart, and I take very serious, and I love doing. You have to love this job in order to be effective in the job.
That's great.
So, I was able to meet some very good people along the way and work with good agencies, and do the work that I call God's work.
Yeah, sure. Very, very good. So, in all these years of experience, you've probably worked in a lot of different modalities of treatment and types of treatment. Seen everything from the voluntary client, the mandated client, and everything across the board. What do the holidays usually do to a person who's in recovery, especially maybe someone who's in early recovery or someone who's maybe seeking recovery? What kind of experience does the holidays bring to their recovery and their treatment?
Right. That's a very good question. There are a lot of things that factor in here. The first thing that I noticed that happens is, people who are early on in recovery or volunteer to come into recovery, they come in with a plan. They understand that, they suffer from the disease of addiction, and they want to try to get help. They want to try to reunite back with the family. They're tired of feeling the way they've always felt. Results never coming up to fruition where they can excel in life. So there's a lot of depression going on, low self-esteem, and finding a way to bridge that. When I find that, when they get in and they're honest, and they start working on the core issues, understanding what relapse is, who's the most important person. Well, then they can begin to work on these issues, to bridge back family, because the holidays is about family, and nobody wants to feel by themselves. So it's a big task, trying to reunite the individual back with the family, having goals to reach. So it takes a lot of work.
Now, do you find that the holidays make it more of a motivation for them to stay in treatment, or do you think it becomes more of an obstacle for them to stay in treatment, or is it different for everyone? I mean, is there like a general consensus of what to expect kind of program-wide when the holidays come around, or?
Yeah, it's been my experience that during the holidays we lose a lot of people because it's so difficult a time for the individuals. The ones who are committed, aside from coming to treatment and have an off-site support system, they flare out better than those that come in and are early on, because we talk about the devastation that addiction has brought on, which breeds depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth, and it's easy to go back and self-medicate during this period of time.
Sure, sure. At one of my former places of employment was an adolescent long-term residential treatment program. And I found that during the holiday season, first of all, the holidays were often used as an excuse of, all right, I'm not going to start now. I'm going to wait till after the holidays.
Exactly.
Like, after the holidays. I mean, granted, for a lot of them, it wouldn't have mattered if it was the holidays. You could fill in the blank. It could be, I'll wait till after the summer. I'll wait till the weather's warmer. My after my birthday. But definitely after the holidays was a big one. And it was also often an excuse for people to leave, especially people who were very early in treatment, weren't yet eligible to come home for a weekend request, and all of a sudden they cared so much about being with their family on the holiday, because now the drugs were out of their system, their head was starting to clear. Now for some of them it was an excuse, and we knew that if they left, that they very likely would fall right back into what you said, self-medicating, and they would be nowhere to be found, come Christmas morning or whatever, their holiday happened to be. But for some of them, it came across as sincere. There was a lot of guilt and shame about past holidays that were ruined. Who was, stole, money from the house right before the holidays. It was meant for Christmas presents, who, took their Christmas presents or, holiday presents and hopped them for money for drugs, after people went to all the trouble of getting them, their gifts and everything. It was definitely a lot of guilty feelings. And, so as a result, now they're clean, and now they want to go and show their best self to their loved ones and their families. So that was an excuse that they used to leave. Ironically enough, a lot of the time their family members didn't want them to come home. They said, you're doing great, we're very proud of you, we'll come visit you, don't come home.
Right.
Because, banded together with the holidays, aside from, your Hanukkahs, your Christmases and everything else, you also had New Year's Eve. And New Year's Eve, especially with some of the younger population who was still into, partying and things like that.
Sure.
New Year's Eve was a huge, huge setup. We used to actually require that the entire, all the clients in the whole program, both the ones still in residential and the ones that were in aftercare, were actually required New Year's Eve to go to the upstate facility to spend it there. And they would have a big, huge party and, a DJ, and for all intents and purposes, it would be almost like a club, but everybody was sober and in a safe and sober environment. But that's not practical for a lot of people.
Sure.
So, for a lot of them, I found in my experience, they were afraid to go out New Year's Eve. Or the ones that did go out New Year's Eve, it's almost like they were setting themselves up to have a fall, and then would come back after the holidays were over, beaten up a little bit more, bruised up a little bit more, and sometimes a little bit humble, like, oh, I blew it again, I ruined another holiday, and that's if they were not too ashamed to come back at all.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that, some don't make it back, as you were saying that, I thought about that, there's this element that's inside of a person that says, what, I can make it different this time, but, you have to change the behavior in order for it to be different. So if you keep doing the same things you've always done, well, the result will always be the same, and then there's the rejection piece, that even though, you may look good on the outside, that doesn't necessarily mean that the family's just gonna open their arms and say, hey man, come on in, and so that there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I suggest there's a lot of meetings going on during these times, 24-hour meetings, during the Christmas, the New Year's holiday, the Thanksgiving holiday, where you can be around people who, who are like you, just recovering a day at a time. This is all about honesty, Mike. You have to be honest as what is it that you're looking for. I know a lot of people go in there and say, look at me now. And I believe that's the first mistake they make. You know, instead of saying, being quiet and just letting their action dictate change. You know, so a lot of stuff, you know, that goes into this. Hopefully, you know, it'll be a different Christmas for a lot of them, you know, in the New Year's. It's all about commitment, having that drive to really want to make it, you know?
Yes, and something that you said that I found, you know, that I was also thinking about, you're right, coming back to the family, you know, they're expecting the family to see all of a sudden this changed person and to welcome them back into the fold as, you know, as if it erased, you know, the damage and the mistrust that's happened for such a long period of time. Now, I don't know about you, I'm a very forgiving person. If I see somebody making an honest effort to, you know, try to better themselves or change themselves, I'm usually very willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. The first time, the second time, the third time, you know, maybe the fourth time. But for some of these people, they've been doing this, you know, especially with some of our older population, they've been doing this their entire lives.
Right.
And, you know, at a certain point, I think their families become less receptive. Either they've come to a point where they've accepted them as they are, just like screw-ups, and, you know, they don't expect anything more of them, or they just don't want them around at all anymore, depending upon how much damage was done. But I do find that it does take them time to open themselves up a lot of the time to actually believe that this person has made these changes and accept that, you know, we have a different person now. You know, I'll say I experienced luckily for myself, I experienced very little of that in my own recovery. I'm in recovery in 2016. I will be 18 years in recovery. And, you know, the early days were, you know, very much a challenge. I remember the holidays. My first holiday, I was in a residential treatment program, was Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving was, I had a great experience in the program I was in. You know, I was in a safe environment. We had a big Thanksgiving dinner and, you know, took the time to, you know, go around and talk about the things that we were thankful for. You know, which, you know, who could remember the last time you were thankful for anything? And then, you know, I was able to go home for Christmas. And when I went home for Christmas, it was tough because, believe it or not, like something so silly you wouldn't think would be a big deal. My family was like head over heels excited that I was in treatment as long as I was and doing well, and they were so happy and so proud. But I saw it a different way. That shame, you know, that comes up. Like, wow, some Christmas present I'm giving you, I'm coming home from my rehab program. Like, you know, what a crappy son am I, or, you know, brother am I, that, you know, I have to come home from a rehab program, and that's your gift. Like, I couldn't even afford to, you know, buy them a present, you know. I was able to scratch together enough to get them a card each, but, you know, here I am entering into this, you know, gift-giving moment with nothing to give and feeling absolutely terrible about it. And you know, I have to tell you, it wasn't really a bad thing to feel that way. You know, it kind of helped me own a little bit, you know, how I had been a disappointment in the past. At the same time, it made me appreciate how much, you know, they were excited for me and hopeful for me that I was going to do well this time. And that, you know, they really made it clear that the presents, none of that really mattered to them. That the best gift that they could get was seeing, you know, their son, you know, their brother get better. I actually had gone into treatment in November on my mother's actual birthday.
Wow.
And I had that same feeling. You know, she picked me up from detox the morning of her birthday, and I just remember I was crying like the whole ride to the center, and finally she was like, you know, what, you know, are you okay? Or is this about you leaving? And I was like, no, it was about that. This is the kind of son I am. I give my mother a birthday present, you know, taking her son to rehab, not realizing that she was seeing it as the greatest gift that I ever gave, because she was able to finally put her head down at night and have a good night's sleep and not worry about if I was going to be alive the next morning, or if she was going to get a call from a hospital, a morgue, a police department. So, you know, it's interesting that, you know, as the person going through it, you think one way, and then, you know, everybody else thinks differently, you know?
I have that same experience type, you know, I remember being incarcerated and my mom being happy because she knew that, you know, I wasn't out in the street and I wasn't in sleeping in a rooftop or something. And it's funny because when I got clean myself, I practiced that. I didn't go in there this time saying, "Look at me now." I kept my mouth shut. And it took a while. Trust things I must earn. I just kept my mouth shut. I kept doing what I needed to do. And as the years went by, and I stayed clean. My dad, who was my greatest critic, saw his son, change right before his eyes. And I can say, through all the hardship and all the pain and misery that I caused them, that when he passed on, he was proud of me, and I take that to heart, and I try to use that same frame of thought with the clients, say, listen, you have to prove nothing to nobody but yourself. This is all about you. Don't tell nobody. Just do it, man. Mm-hmm. When I was in school, one of the greatest marketing tools that I learned was that Nike logo, and it's so profound. It says, "Just do it." And addicts are like that. We can rationalize and we can say this and we'll procrastinate, but if we just do it, we can make it happen. And I believe that listening to some of what you're saying, that the identification, I get the sense that you understand that, because you just do it, man. And then you just keep working on that. You don't get comfortable. You can't get complacent in this process because it breeds, it breeds evil. Yeah, sure. Yes, so, there's no doubt about it. I'm truly grateful, but a lot of identification with what you just said, thinking about that, and to this day, my mom, she's 85, thank God, and we talk 5 times a day. I visit her every other week. I'm the only male, so 3 sisters, so you know what? Yeah. God has been good.
That's great, and you're right. The whole "look at me" thing is not really a good way to do it, especially because as addicts, one thing addicts are really good at is like selling you lies.
Oh, sure.
Selling you the bridge, as they say it. So they're always trying to put polish on something that's really not good, and for their own benefit, whether it's to get money or manipulate somebody. Oh, I got this great opportunity. If you let me borrow this money, I'll be able to do this, and I promise I'll pay you back later. And then it's all it's all lies and it's all bull. So being too eager and too anxious to show somebody that, like, look at me, look how great I'm doing, probably can come across in that same kind of car salesman-y, no offense to car salesman, kind of way, that, all right, here he goes, he's just trying to sell me another line of bull, as opposed to somebody noticing it for themselves. You're right. I mean, I think that's really key. Somebody actually seeing it for themselves. And it's funny, social media was just really starting to get popular, in some of my early recovery days. And I remember, looking up people from my past, prior to when I became involved with drugs, people who were smart enough to drop me once I became a little too much of a problem. And some of them were still very angry, because I was close with them, and didn't really believe when I reached out to them. They were waiting for the next message to be, hey, oh, by the way, can you loan me $50 or whatever? Mm-hmm. So I was kind of angry and upset about it at first. I look, all this hard work that I did, how could they not give me a chance? But I had to remind myself, number one, they have no idea how much hard work I put into anything. They haven't been in touch with me for a long time, and the last time they were, I was very dishonest and manipulative, and maybe stole from them, borrowed from them with no intention of returning, which is basically stealing. So it wasn't until some of them saw me in person. I ran into them somewhere, in a store, a supermarket, in the neighborhood, and I mean, the second they saw me, it's like they knew that I was me, that they knew from before, because there were just some things you can't really fake, you know what I mean? And it wasn't me trying to sell myself to them. They just saw it for themselves. Yeah. And I was fortunately able to reconnect with most of those people. I mean, believe it or not, even with 18 years behind me, there were still a few people that just they'll just never open their hearts to me again, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow for a long time. You can have 100 people that welcome you back into the fold, but you have that one or two people that just won't accept you back, and it's hard to let that go because it's like, what more do you want from me? But they have their reasons, and I have to respect it. I created the situation; they did not, and whatever will be, and if I have to let that go, I have to let it go. But it's funny how now the holidays have become such an important thing to me now, being with my family and being able to do for my family and for the people that we serve. To try to give them a little bit of that caring that they're starving for from their family, but maybe their family's not willing to give it to them yet. That understanding that they get from us as counselors, that warmth that they get from us, the understanding, we have to sometimes, I think, as counselors, be a little bit more patient with them. If they, get nasty or fly off the handle or, miss a group but they show up the next day, we have to be patient with them as well. And that's what I like about, this field. The approach for everybody is a little bit different.
Absolutely. And
it shows how attentive and how well you listen as a counselor. That's why I remember going through school for, KSAC, they just kept stressing that, being a good counselor is being a good listener, not being a good, speaker.
Absolutely.
Right. And in listening to our clients and getting to know them, you get to know the right things to offer them, to extend to them, to accept from them. And it's just, the holidays are a really good time to be prepared to use that stuff.
Absolutely right, because I remember, in some of the programs I've been in myself, a lifetime program, which is in California, Synanon, learning, looking at the different, approaches to treatment, from super hardcore treatment, residential treatment to TC model to the outpatient model, and knowing that we don't have to break them down to build them up again. This is more about being, we don't have to disclose to them, but being empathetic towards their needs and just developing realistic goals for them to obtain, real simple goals, so they can get a sense of accomplishment, and that starts the ball rolling. During this time, we're going to be as emotionally spent as they are, because they're going to be dropping all this on us. So we got to hold it together, you see, and be supportive. And it's okay for what I see every once in a while say, hey, maybe we would like to do it this way. I hear what you're saying, but have you thought about it like this, without taking away what they want to do? Right. Just showing them a different way of doing it. Basically the same thing, so they can reach, some goals that will make them feel better. Yeah. This is a healing process, Mike, and it's a long process. You don't get it like that. This is work, in and day out. So, very, very important to set the foundation early on with them. And one thing that I like about the Resource Counseling Center is, we had that Thanksgiving dinner, and all these guys and girls, they were here, and they partook, and they ate, and we did karaoke, and we did, and it was a bonding period between staff and clients, which is also very important. And that same process we have to put into the fold now, because I believe that Christmas and New Year is a little harder for people to get through,
Sure.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about setting those smaller, more reachable goals, because I think another thing that it works at is addicts, especially active addicts, but it's one of those behaviors that often continues into recovery, that need for instant gratification.
Sure.
You set that goal for yourself, you're not interested on what steps to take to get to that goal. You just want that goal.
Yes.
You get tunnel vision, and all you see is the goal. For a lot of people in recovery, meeting those small goals and knowing that you got something done. I mean, it's such a great feeling
Absolutely.
to you're so used to being a screw up and not doing anything right.
Sure.
And even something so mundane, something so small, it feels like you did something. And to be able to come back to even your counselor and be able to say to your counselor, like, all right, we discussed in group last week that that I want to get a job. All right, well, if you want to get a job, what's the steps you have to take? Well, I got to get your resume done. You got to go out and get some your job applications to fill out. So maybe that first goal is to get the resume in order. To be able to come back a week later and say, hey, I worked on my resume this week, and to get that like, hey, attaboy, from your counselor, that feels good when
Sure.
when you look at your counselor in the face. I remember, as someone who was in recovery, it was very important to me what my counselors thought about, my progress. I wouldn't always act like it was important to me, but I know when I did something that, when I met a goal with them and I could tell they were proud of it, it kind of made me feel really good about it, And it did help work on that whole instant gratification thing, because it got me in the mode of, all right, this is what I want ultimately. I'm not going to get it right this second, but if I continue on this path, then that path will inevitably lead me to that goal. Because, I think we steer our clients towards realistic goals. Like if they come to us with a goal, I'm going to be a rock star. Well, being a rock star, that's great. That's something that you'd love to be. But, musicians are a dime a dozen. Why don't we focus on something a little more realistic? Like, all right, you want to, improve your guitar playing skills. All right, whatever, things that, are realistic, and addicts sometimes, between the drugs, what they do to our minds, we get these grandiose ideas of things we're going to do. And, when we don't meet these unrealistic goals, it just further feeds our reasoning for continuing to get high.
Sure.
So in this case, it's always about the holidays. I'm going to go back. I'm going to, welcome myself back into the family. They're all going to forgive me. We're going to give each other presents, and it's going to be like the last 15 years of pure hell didn't happen. And of course, it doesn't work out that way. So.
I think we just kind of like grow together, those were just the growing pains, even if it was a negative experience, the positive side of that is that look at you today, and we focus on that, we can't dwell on what happened 15 years ago,
Sure.
but we look at how it happened and, the trials and the errors until we get to today, present day, and we tap into the gratitude, because there's always been somebody in this field that has had an impact on people like you and myself,
Sure.
and that's what I take. And in the same interim, I try to do the same. I try to do something that, I don't have all the answers, but if I can say one little word that can unlock something and can motivate somebody, well then my job is done.
Sure.
And I'm just grateful I get an opportunity to do this at the rate that I do it,
All right, so it's the holiday season. Want to thank everybody for watching and
Yes.
wish everybody a very happy holiday season for you and your family. Of course, if there's ever anything that we can do, if you have a loved one, a family member, a friend, yourself, like someone who is struggling right now and going through some of the things that we just spoke about, please don't hesitate to call us. You can reach us at 718-871-2400. We hope everybody has good holidays and a happy new year, and we will see you next year.